Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far, and a lot to dive into today with regard to the meta as it sits right now in Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. Some players have certainly talked about the fact that they're not exactly sure this meta is going in the right direction, whereas other players are very happy with how we sit with Stage 4 just around the corner. And do take your thoughts in the comment section below. Like if you guys enjoyed the video, subscribe if you are new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that. First of all, to mention this, the European and the North American Challengers Elite Qualifiers for Season 4. These are the 8 teams in the European region that are going to be making it. Leave these up on screen for just a second if you guys would like to check it out. Also, in the North American side as well, of course, the qualifiers have now concluded, and well, these are the teams that make it from that region. Unfortunately, Parasite's team didn't quite get there. Been a tough time for a few of these squads, to be honest. The fact that obviously everything is so changeable in the challenger scene, it's absolutely chaotic, and the European scene tends to be slightly more stable in terms of who's, you know, the top teams and who's teaming with each other, whereas in the North American region it changes pretty much on a daily basis. Hanky says right here, GG's to everyone we played. No elite for me, unfortunately. Having a new team of 4 every week is not fun. My luck was bound to run out getting to these elites. Thanks for watching the stream. Better days ahead for sure. So certainly something to keep your eyes on going forwards, but yeah, challenges as always chaos, and probably more roster mania to follow over the coming days. Before we dive into the meta stuff, I wanted to talk about this actually with regard to the whole Vivid the Warrior situation. There's been so many crazy storylines so far this season. The whole Huke debacle is certainly one of them, but the Vivid stuff is very interesting, right? Because of course he gets benched off LAG. It's a very rare occasion, I think, where a player gets effectively benched. I mean, you could argue he benched himself, which is kind of what Silly's getting at right here. But at least on the surface, it seems like they decided to bench Vivid for one reason or another. At least that's kind of the public explanation that we had at the time from LAG. And now he gets removed off that team and then picked up by a theoretically much stronger team in the Dallas Empire. So all rather interesting, the fact that someone can get benched off a worse team, picked up by a better team in theory. But Silly has some interesting things to say on exactly how this did go down behind the scenes. My understanding was that Vivid was really not happy with the fact that the team wasn't improving and not going in the right direction, and he was talking to the coaching staff on a very regular basis saying, look, we need to make some sort of change. And well, when everything kind of continued to go poorly for him and he was continuing to be frustrated with the whole situation, then the coaching staff decided, all right lads, you're out of the team, unlucky pal, we're bringing in Chino. And Silly talks about it right here, and this may be how it was perceived from Silly's perspective when he effectively says that, like, look, we needed to submit our roster, and all of a sudden Vivid, you know, wasn't there to actually be part of the team, and that was unfortunate, and they of course were looking to play with Vivid, and then it didn't happen all of a sudden, and now of course he's got traded to the Dallas Empire.
We were 100% before Stage 3 expecting to play with Reese. So we were, at least player-wise, we were all expecting to go into it with him. And obviously, it came at a really bad time, and we were basically in a scenario where we had 2 days to find someone to play with before rosters had to be submitted, which not like that's not torching or anything. It obviously just like came out of nowhere a little bit.
Yeah, he benched himself.
Well, what the heck happened? Yeah,
but like, you know, I get his frustration, how he looked really good at the end of Stage 2, and then obviously losing first round of Florida is just unacceptable, no matter how way or like whatever way you look at it. So I definitely get his frustrations. It definitely, you know, caught us off guard a little bit. So it
So let's talk about this meta as it sits right now. We imagine we're going to have 2 74Us on the map, at least 1 Krig on the map, probably 2 Krigs, but also there's plenty of discussion as to what exactly the flex weapon is going to be. I've been trying the FFAR the last couple of days in League play. It's pretty up and down. I mean, I'm not sure. I probably need more practice with it, all things considered, but sometimes you do get into gunfights where you do hit a headshot and it kills in 1 less bullet than it should do typically, and you absolutely melt someone, and up close it's ridiculously good. I mean, very rare, to be honest, for an assault rifle to be particularly good up close. On some of the larger gunfights I do have very much a difficult time, but Dashy of course has been one of those players that can control the recoil and use these kind of do-it-all weapons in a way very well indeed. Weapons that tend to be good up close and pretty decent at, you know, dominant at mid-range if you can control the recoil. These are the ones that Dashy has tended to be good at throughout Call of Duty history. The XM4 could be arguably another example. The Maddox, for example, back in Black Ops 4 in somewhat of a similar boat, even though the FFAR's recoil of course is much more difficult to control than those 2 weapons. But as Dashy says, meta is perfect right now, no kid. Kizzy. Now, of course, some of the other pros don't exactly share these sentiments because we've seen some of the SMG players especially pretty frustrated that the Krig got even better in the latest update. But yeah, we'll have to see how this goes because on the maps right now, it seems like a lot of the time the meta looks pretty good. I mean, the fact of the matter is you can buff the ARs all you like in this game. Like, you can make the ARs incredibly good, but the vast majority of the time, teams are always going to need at least 2 SMGs on most of the respawns at least. In Search and Destroy, it can get pretty mixy because on some maps, like pulling out 4 Krigs could actually be the play on defense, and that of course is pretty unfortunate. But in the respawns, a lot of the time you need like someone to be able to slide in first. You can't always do that with a Krig, even if it is a very strong weapon right now. So typically you'll always see at least 2 SMGs, and it seems like what Dashy's getting at right here. So okay, as Simp says in reply, FFAR question mark, bro, I'm using everything on my flex thing right now. So the flex role has not really been a thing so far this season, to be honest. Players haven't really been flexing as such. Like back in World War II, the flex role was very specific. There was 2 players who were your main SMGs. There was 1 main assault rifle, and 1 player would pretty much always just use an SMG like a BBSH, or he'd use a bar or an STG, depending on the hardpoint, right? Or yeah, depending on the map they were playing, or depending on the particular hardpoint rotation at the time, whether they needed 3 SMGs or 2 assault rifles. That's pretty much how it would go on almost every single map. Now this year it hasn't really been like that in terms of the meta. We see a lot of effectively most teams have 2 SMG players and 2 assault rifle players. They'll have a faster SMG and a slower SMG, and they'll have a faster assault rifle and they'll have a slower assault rifle. So Dashy's kind of saying right here that actually there could be a flex role kind of coming back in a way that on some maps he's using the 74U, on some maps he's using the FFAR as kind of that mid-range superstar weapon, and then on some maps he's using the Krig if necessary. Now it is interesting, right, because of course a player like Dashy is very capable of doing that with all 3 weapons. There's not too many players in that kind of second assault rifle role that actually have the possibility to use all these different weapons. So it is always interesting to me how this could affect certain teams, and certain maps always play into the strengths and weaknesses of certain players as well. But yeah, Dashy seems to be pretty happy with the meta. Other pros not necessarily convinced. As Bam says, most definitely a 74U player right now living in a Krig's world. And well, if you can have a, well, if you do have a player on your team who can use the 74U at times if you need to pull out 3 SMGs, because in certain situations 3 74U still could certainly be viable, despite the Krig being very good indeed. One question is, to me, when we go back to LAN, we tend to see in general, a lot of the pros have tended to say throughout Call of Duty history that assault rifles get better in a LAN environment because well, it means your hit rate is better, there's no issues with latency and stuff like this, which generally means LAN is more punishing for players that play overly aggressively. That's kind of been the sentiment that's had throughout Call of Duty history, that a lot of these onliners and S&D stars and stuff like this in previous games, they kind of go to a LAN environment thinking they can play in the same loose, free-flowing style as they do online, and it doesn't work out because if you've got someone posting about a hate glitch, they are going to absolutely melt you in a LAN environment even more than they can do online with the Krig. So in theory, the Krig gets better on 60Hz, as we've seen the pros discussing these last couple of months, but then additionally could get better on LAN. So that does maybe mean that you still kind of need 2 assault rifles on many maps, but of course the game could be significantly different. I mean, the pros always talk about when they go back to LAN the fact that the game feels very different indeed from an online environment to a LAN environment, and the exciting thing really is, or the strange thing I guess for the pros, is that there's going to be 3 weeks of online play still these next 3 weeks, the first 3 weeks of group play for Stage 4, and then they have basically like 2 days before they then go to the LAN environment in Texas to play the Major, which is obviously is pretty exciting for us as viewers, but they're not going to have too much time to actually practice and prepare and see how things are different on LAN, given they haven't played it on LAN, I'm pretty sure, this entire year so far, unless they've been practicing in a home environment or something against the rest of their team doing 2v2s, maybe to, well, see how things are going. Simp says a similar thing as well. There is no way the Krig just got buffed in this latest update. And looking at the players in the league right now, who benefits most from this kind of meta where there is actually maybe a flex role coming back, where someone needs to be able to potentially use an FFAR at times? Because it seems with this latest update, a lot of people are saying this FFAR is very good indeed. And if you've got a player who's good with it, then well, either the pros are just going to start to GA it at some point, or it's actually going to be a pretty significant part of the meta. And if you don't adapt, then you might end up falling behind. So if you don't have a player that's really good on the flex, I mean, that's the thing with so many of these teams, of course, they do have many players that can adapt to those roles. You look at a team like Los Angeles, Thieves, for example, I've always been very impressed with the flexibility that exists on their lineup, so I think they'll be fine no matter what the situation does transpire into. But some of these teams, I think, are going to have a more difficult time. You look at Los Angeles Gunless, for example, when you've got Assault and Chino on the ARs, it's going to be difficult for one of them to flex to an SMG if needed in certain situations. So having a good flex player is pretty important, potentially, if this meta is going down the direction that Dashy has been indicating. Also wanted to talk about this, though, with regard to the sniper rifle, because we talked a couple of days ago, the sniper was, well, it's getting potentially returning to competitive play. It got nerfed to some significant degree, the kind of ADS speed, also the flinch has been added to the gun, but still, aim assist exists to some degree. agree. And also, there's no smokes in the game right now. The smokes are still somewhat buggy. That has also been the concern on standoff, the fact that back in the day you could use smokes to do crosses and stuff like that. That isn't really the case anymore. And, well, we were kind of hoping that snipers would get back. And I'm sure that speaking of Dashy, he was pretty much hoping that snipers would get back as well. He took the W yesterday during the All-Star weekend, or the first game of the All-Star weekend up against the, well, Awakening here on Florida, hitting some pretty nice snipes as well, all things considered. I mean, sniping has kind of been Dashy's trademark throughout his career. This is a crazy clip every time I see it. I mean, he's just shooting bots here on Stronghold. What a map this was, by the way, back in Black Ops 3. But he just goes back and forth with the Locust, just absolute piece of these bots. It's honestly, like, it's impressive to see that, that his centering is just this good. So yeah, just back and forth. There's always a crazy clip every time I see it posted on the timeline from time to time. But yeah, so of course, Dashy legendary with the sniper. It would have been nice to see the sniper come back this year at some point or another. And of course, there's so many other great players with the sniper in the league as well. But it doesn't seem like right now that the sniper will be making the return. I think a lot of pros have saying for a number of different reasons they don't really want to bring it back, and the fact that they're this deep into the title now and nothing really has changed definitely says they kind of want to keep the status quo as it is right now. And this is kind of what Simp says on the matter yesterday, because aBeZy had some crazy sniping performance as well up against Scraps G, and as Simp says, guess we know who's sniping for us next season. So yeah, next season ... saying effectively, as Lewis is pointing out, next season unfortunately no longer going to be returning, it does seem, for this season so far. I gave you kind of a sneak peek of the last thing I wanted to mention today, that being this from Douglas said to Martin: in 2015 I saw the bigger picture and took a step back from competing to build my brand. Fast forward to 2021, I'm established and happy with where my life is at, but now I'm looking to be a Nadeshot to a Scump, so somewhere in that ballpark. I want to continue to build off what we as a community have grown. And I thought this is a pretty interesting reply as well from Texas Formal. Build your own godab team and buy into straight up into the league, right? So Sensor says, like, thinking about it, could you imagine if Doug said to Martin just comes in and buys his own team and then like headlines his own lineup? I think that'd be the craziest thing ever. Like, he gets some investors behind him and he comes in with Doug's team, or I don't know exactly what he'd call it, and he's the permanent fixture on the starting team. I don't know if there's any rules against that, but I don't really know. Maybe Doug can make it work. It doesn't seem like there's going to be expansion coming next year, but who knows, maybe some organizations and franchises want to sell their spot and Doug could just swoop in with some investor backing and then yeah, straight into the CDL. Who knows what's going to happen over the coming seasons? I'm sure it's going to be a crazy time. Hopefully these LAN events that we do have, Stage 4, Stage 5 and Champs, prove to be somewhat successful, so that well, a lot of these organizations that maybe are on the cusp but not exactly sure if they want to buy into the league decide to go ahead and do so, and Doug can maybe ride the wave to the World Championship. But intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, I'd greatly appreciate a like on the video. It really helps out the YouTube algorithm that you enjoy this content. Other people like you may enjoy this content as well, and I've grown the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you for watching as always, take care, and I will see you next time.